I'm doomed high.
Alright, it is time for Chapter 2 of Forgiveness Pending. I realized we were trapped. Sweetie Belle lowered herself nervously to the floor of the platform, slipping in right behind my foreleg as I watched Twilight through the crack. Applejack was behind the only exit to this now very horrifying building. To make matters worse, I saw Rainbow Dash flutter down and slowly start to attempt to work the window open outside to the left. A rapid pounding came from the door behind me. "What in blazes do you think you're doing, Mander?" I heard shortly thereafter, barely audible through the heavy wooden door. "But back, monster!" Twilight warned nervously, her horn still glowing angrily as she lowered herself to the stairs. She was scared of me? I started to open my mouth to say something when she opened fire, unfortunately. I let out an exceedingly high-pitched scream, rather embarrassing of my gender, and rapidly raised a shield using a front leg. The barrier barely deflected the bolt, causing it to tear through the side of my platform instead and knock us back into the door. From my cowering position, I stared in shock at the new hole in my vehicle. Sweetie Belle peeked out from around the busted section, earning another gasp from Twilight. "Sweetie Belle, are you okay?" "Let her go," the lavender unicorn demanded. I will. Please, just listen," I begged, peeking around the side of the opening, just above the little filly. Twilight widened her eyes. Moonmender? What are you? But you were," she muttered rapidly. "Just please. Sweetie Belle didn't do anything wrong, so please don't punish her. She only wanted to help me," I begged, lowering the platform to the floor shakily, and opening the front so she could get down. She surprised me by turning around and looking up at me instead. "Huh?" "You rescued me and stuck up for me." That was a weird Sweetie Belle voice. "You rescued me and stuck up for me." "I guess that's good enough," she asked quietly, suddenly wearing a warm smile. My mind idled into reverse. Sweetie Belle hugged my left foreleg before I could reply. My magic faltered as I suddenly realized how tired I was. The platform, or what was left of it anyway, slowly lowered us to the floor. "Oh, for crying out loud! I wasn't going to hurt her in the first place," Applejack muttered from the other side of the door. Twilight recovered rapidly and bounded the remaining 2 meters towards me. I almost panicked, but Sweetie Belle had a hold of me, so there wasn't much I could do. There was no impact or subduing blast, though. All I felt was Twilight's warm coat as she latched onto my other foreleg, pushing both Sweetie and I gently into the wall next to the door. I was momentarily bewildered, then turned a deep crimson as she pulled me into a tight hug, Sweetie Belle incidentally getting sandwiched between us. I tried to avert my eyes, shifting them just in time to see a Cyan and Rainbow Pegasus flutter through the now open window, wearing a smirk. She landed next to me on my right and unlocked the front door, sticking her tongue out as my eyes widened towards her. I fidgeted, trying to shift from her, but Twilight wouldn't budge. "I'm so sorry for everything, Mender. I'm glad you're awake," Twilight muttered into my neck as she squeezed me. Oops. Back to blushing. Threat of imminent death can only hold back feelings of an amazing girl pressed against you for so long, I guess. "Twi, it's all right. I'm sorry, too," I reminded, realizing Sweetie Belle was right all along. I'm glad I listened to her this time. Rainbow snickered. "Aw, you two are so cute," she started taunting with a grin, just as she slid the last lock. Wham! The door slammed open, taking the Cyan mare with it, and flattening her against the wall on the other side. "Whew! Totally party time right here. I brought the cannon," Pinkie assured whimsically, as she bounced through the doorway. I saw Applejack flattened on the step, glaring up at the pink tush, bouncing away from her. I just assumed she got bowled over as well. "Wait. Cannon?" "Pinkie, I'm trying to apologize here," Twilight growled, switching from adoring to irate in a second. Whoa. I was suddenly worried as I was still attached to her. Pinkie giggled and nodded merrily, seemingly unfazed, as she spun and cartwheeled. I got even more tired just from watching her. "He already knows about Celestia. I'm sorry, Twilight," Sweetie Belle apologized from in between us, looking up at the lavender mare. Twilight swallowed and nodded as well, looking back up at me instead. "It's all right, sweetie." Mender, I wrote a letter to the princess the night I got so worked up. I panicked and didn't know what to do, so I kind of ended up telling her everything," she explained quietly, looking more than a little nervous, but still clenching me as if I'd fade away if she should let go. It wasn't a hug anymore, but instead felt like a strange form of assurance. "You were right to be honest with the princess, Twi," Applejack assured slowly, getting up again and walking inside at a far more relaxed gait than her pink friend. Pinkie nodded agreement enthusiastically, then tilted her head as a light groan came from behind the door. Rainbow Dash slowly stumbled out, holding her forehead with a hoof. Applejack held up a hoof, however, preemptively halting a Pinkie outburst. "But to do that, you had to betray Mender's trust instead. I'm not saying you made the wrong choice. It's just something to think about," she said slowly, as if carefully picking her words. I swallowed heavily, remembering my nightmare. If Sweetie was right, and the princess helped pull me back, then this definitely was the right choice. Wasn't it? My mind shifted back to those frigid moments I spent alone on that ship, in the middle of a massive void, and the only other thing living that vaguely nearby being a complete monster. I'd wanted so desperately just to let someone else deal with it. I hadn't been brave and strong. I just felt tiny and weak, dealing the only hand I had left, and hoping it was enough. Truthfully, these ponies meant more to me than I did now. This way of life, and every pony in this wonderful world, it was all so pure and beautiful. I hated myself for risking it. Maybe I should have died with the rest of my race. I tried so hard, but did I deserve this outcome? I was all that was left. My old race was gone, and everyone I knew and loved dead. I couldn't even remember them. Did I deserve to be happy when millions of my race lost everything? It was overwhelming. Screams of pain and despair echoed through my head as I remembered. There was nothing but memories of misery from my past life. I wondered if I had seen anything apart from that. "Mender," Twilight whispered gently. I snapped out of it in time to realize my cheeks felt warm and wet. A sense of disgust came over me as I used my now free hoof to wipe my eyes. Sorry," I muttered, embarrassed. Whack! I reeled sideways from a moderate blow to the side of my head. Stars exploded nonetheless, and I felt a sharp sting tear through my left cheek as I hit the wooden floor and slid. "Applejack! What are you doing?" Twilight demanded, moving in between her and I, while Sweetie Belle sprung over to check me for damage. "That there's for worrying every pony with your shenanigans. I imagine Rainbow, Twi, and Fluttershy'll have their own 2 bits to add later, but consider yourself paid in full with the rest of us," she explained, expression neutral and stoic. All things considered, she probably could have snapped my head off with that hoof hit. She pulled her punch and let me off gently then. I had expected worse. Slowly sitting up, I rubbed my left cheek and drew back blood on my hoof. Yeah, I was definitely going to get a black eye from that one. Thank you, Applejack," I spoke gently, eyes softening towards her. That oddly made me feel better. Well, mentally. Her stoicism slipped, acquiring a gentler smile. Gentler. "Then consider yourself forgiven. Pinks and Rare wouldn't have voiced as much, so I knew I had to be the one," Applejack added, averting her gaze slightly from the still angry-looking Twilight. "Applejack? I wasn't upset at him at all. Well, maybe a little sad that he almost died, and that he was going to miss the awesome party I planned, but," Pinkie protested, with a little less energy than usual. Applejack shook her head gently, glancing over at the pink mare. "I know you're a forgiving mare, but he made you sad still, and I'm sure he didn't mean to," she explained in a quiet but sturdy voice. Rainbow Dash still looked shocked and remained quiet. "Then why did you do that? He's barely out of the clinic an afternoon, and you decide to hit him?" Twilight asked crossly. Rainbow Dash finally snapped out of it and let out a snicker, raising a hoof between Twilight and her pony of affection. "Relax, Twi. That was barely a swat for AJ here. Plus, he seems to have accepted it," she pointed out, now wearing a smirk. Did that mean I did something right in her eyes? I smiled weakly and nodded. trying not to wince and risk damaging my ego further as I felt my cheeks swelling. She let me off easy for what I did to you ponies. I still feel like I owe you more. I muttered. It's such a downer. Sweetie Belle quietly shook her head as she reached out with a piece of tissue in her mouth to dab at my cheek. Whispering thanks, I bent lower to make it easier for her. The tissue felt really soft, and I wondered where she'd gotten it. I'm not mad at you at all, Mender. You were amazingly noble, if anything. I should be the one to apologize. I gave out confidential information about you without consent or even informing you, Twilight replied, turning around to focus on me instead, albeit with a far more positive expression. Is Princess Celestia mad at me? I asked carefully, and I decided to keep the banishment, Black Ops, or execution ideas to myself for now. All four mares looked bewildered, but Twilight laughed nervously a second later. You have quite the imagination, Mender. No, she's happy she helped save you, she assured, trying to smile. But, I questioned, noting her hesitation. She sighed, and noticeably sagged. She just asked me if it was all right to get an account of the event so she could estimate the level of danger to Equestria, she muttered. Oh, I might be missing something, but that doesn't sound so bad, Applejack pondered out loud. Same thing. Pinkie went back to smiling and enthusiastically nodded her agreement. Yeah! Are you worried that she'll do something, Mender? Rainbow asked curiously. Twilight shook her head, to my relief. No, she reported herself that the link faded after the explosion of the Grosh ship. Mender's not dangerous to Equestria, she assured, making me feel even better. I had planned on asking her if the explosion had worked, but if it wasn't that, I could only think of one other reason for her distress. She wants a personal account from me directly, I asked gently, masking my nervousness. Twilight nodded softly. Sort of. She wants the direct images from your memories, if at all possible, Twilight informed weakly, looking down. I reeled back in surprise. Oh crap. If Twilight was forceful, I can only imagine the level of violation being mind-raped by a goddess would bring. She must have seen my reaction, as she rapidly shook both front hooves towards me. Wait! She said when you're healthy enough to, and she wants me to perform the spell, not her. Twilight rapidly overcorrected, although scarily accurate with the second half. Healthy? Is the ritual painful or something? Rainbow asked from behind her, sounding a little uncomfortable with the concept. Twilight shook her head, peeking back over her shoulder. No, it just takes a lot of energy from him. He essentially won't get any natural REM sleep for the night we choose to do it, which might be detrimental to his health at the moment, she reasoned. Oh, I had to be pseudo-sleeping? Rainbow started snickering mirthfully, however. She held a forehoof up to her muzzle as she restrained it. Better eat some silphium beforehand, she warned, but barely holding back the laughter. Huh? What was silphium? Huh? Twilight muttered, apparently as confused as I was. Pinkie burst into laughter, almost instantly. Applejack chuckled as well and shook her head, though. It did sound a tad awkward, but I think I get it. He has to be sleeping, but he won't be rested up after, right? She asked, smirking still. Awkward? I was seriously missing something. Twilight slipped back into scientific mode and rapidly nodded. Yes, I'll be peeking through his mind as he sleeps, which means he can't slip into REM and replenish his natural energies. My mind sort of, keeps his awake, she attempted to explain. They stared at each other for a few seconds. Applejack looked truthfully thoughtful, but Twilight suddenly looked perplexed. A single beat later, she suddenly went scarlet in the cheeks and glared intensely at Rainbow. Hey! She protested. The Cyan mare burst into laughing, of course. She joined Pinkie in rolling on the floor. That is disgusting. You are so horrible, Rainbow Dash, she growled, sounding oddly embarrassed. Well, then it must be sexual. I was just deeply confused. I'd assumed Dash was laughing. It was because of what she said earlier, but I had no idea what silphium was. Sweetie Belle looked equally confused, so I didn't feel as badly. Applejack must have noticed my quiet confusion, as she explained a second later. Silphium, when ingested by a mare, works as a potent contraceptive. Contra what? Sweetie Belle asked curiously. Pinky winked at me while upside down, ignoring the filly. My cheeks went scarlet, oddly similar to Twilight. Yeah, wouldn't want Mender to become a daddy? The pink mare squealed, sounding deeply amused. What the hell? Where did they get... Oh, the night we do it, I mentally groaned. What? Mender's going to be a daddy? Sweetie Belle asked in sudden shock. Oh, for the love of all that was just and fair. That's it. Twilight was never going to speak to me again. That's it. Mender needs rest, so out! Twilight growled, horns starting to glow menacingly. Dash made a yelping noise, zipping out the window behind her, as if trying to escape incoming mortar fire. Of course, Twilight was scary like that. Pinky giggled and made a light, excited snorting noise before rolling to her feet. Oh, we were just playing, but Mender does need his rest. Sleep well, 'cause it's totally party time tomorrow, she assured me, giving me a wink before hopping out the door like a rabbit with a sugar high. Fine. Tomorrow evening, though, Twilight called after her, sounding a little tired herself suddenly. Regardless, she followed Pinky out the door, with the warning, just to be sure. I'd reckon I'd best let the nurse know that you're checking out and not somewhere in the tree somewhere, right? Applejack offered calmly, after Twilight wandered back inside, head hung slightly. I sighed and nodded to her wearily. The after effects of using my magic again were definitely felt, even though I hadn't done much. It was like any other muscle, however. I was just heavily out of practice. Yeah, I'm sorry about the whole running away thing earlier, I apologized. Sweetie Belle giggled as she finally took the tissue back, rotating it using her tongue. I saw little dots of blood on it. What tissue? What? Ew, I'm not sure what's going on. But it was fun, she protested, tissue still in her mouth. Applejack chuckled and patted her lightly on the head, having moved up next to me to get out of the way when Twilight went after Pinky. Fun is all fine and dandy, but it's only common courtesy to let the nurse know when he's all right, she explained, smiling at the little white filly. Suddenly, Applejack thought of something horrifying, but decided to be as polite about it as possible. Thank you, Applejack. Where am I going to stay tonight, if not the clinic, though? I inquired, as nicely as I could muster. Here, of course, Twilight answered instead, coming back inside slowly and closing the door. I was momentarily taken aback, memories of almost getting run over with a mattress coming fresh to mind. I must have looked surprised because she suddenly blushed while Applejack started snickering merrily. You'd have to admit, you two last parted on some rocky relations, she reminded, absently waving her hoof in the air. Oh yeah, Twilight kicked him out, Sweetie Belle suddenly seemed to recall, leaning back against my right foreleg. Wait, why was she still here? Twilight winced and nodded. I know. We have a few things to discuss, but please give me another chance, she requested quietly. Smiling, I nodded gently to her. I was just happy she was giving me another chance instead. The day's events rapidly caught up to me an instant later, surprising me. I wobbled suddenly, feeling the slow throb of headache spike from the magic and a light, warm trickle go down the front of my muzzle from my nose. Too much magic, too quickly. Whoa, Nellie. You'd best be making your way upstairs to bed. You look mighty unstable on your hoof, so let me help you, Applejack offered, moving a little closer. I flinched slightly and shifted away from her. She froze for a moment, and her eyes softened, her nod assuring me, followed by a gentle smile. I relaxed and gave in, letting her hook my right foreleg over my shoulders and slowly leading me up the stairs. She meant what she said earlier. That punch really was my payment, then. Oh, Sis's nose sometimes does that if she works on dresses for too long, Sweetie Belle pointed out. Wow. Trotting after Twilight as she went up the stairs following us. Yes, he overused his magic back there. He'll be fine. We'll just sleep well tonight. He'll just sleep well, she assured. We'll sleep. I heard a weak sigh behind us, regardless. "But he did it to save me, to get me out of trouble," she muttered. "Oh, for crying out loud! I wasn't gonna hurt you, sweetie," Applejack protested. Again. I chuckled tiredly and added, "Yeah, and technically, I was the reason you were in that position in the first place. I couldn't let anything happen to you." There was a light scratching as we reached the top of the stairs, I noted. Spike was writing gently on a long unrolled parchment that was spread a good 10 feet across the floor. "Hey, Twilight, I almost finished the first alphabetized segment of—" He started to greet before turning around and giving a surprise start. "Whoa! Applejack? Moonmender?" he added questioningly. "Hey, Spike. Mender woke up and is going to be staying with us tonight. Can you help Applejack get him into bed?" Twilight requested, coming to the top of the stairs after the three of us cleared it. Spike tilted his head. "Bed? Is he sleeping with you?" he questioned. Even half asleep, I still managed to blush. Spike! Mattress, then." "Sheesh," Twilight groaned behind me, a matching blush almost apparent in her voice. Spike didn't seem to understand his faux pas, or is it faux pas? I don't remember. I think it's faux pas, but shrugged and guided Applejack and I towards the other corner. I was surprised to see the folding mattress set up there again. Applejack wordlessly picked up my surprise. "We brought it back here after you went into the clinic. Twice said she wanted to have you close to run some tests for a little while," she explained gently, helping me lie down. Sweetie Belle helped adjust my pillow, as Applejack actually pulled my blankets back for me. Thank you. You too?" I muttered, somewhat unsure of how to gracefully handle their kindness. "Considering she belted you not even 10 minutes ago, it's the least she can do," Twilight muttered, rolling her eyes as I watched her walk around Applejack to examine me. "Whoa! She what?" Spike asked, sounding a mixture of surprised and amused. Applejack looked less entertained. "I told you why. I let him off easy for the amount of needless worry he gave us," she professed. Twilight narrowed her eyes slightly. "I guess we have different definitions of needless, then. He was brave and honorable, actually ready to give his life to save us," she defended. Brave and honorable? I almost wet myself. If there had been any other option, I would have run screaming. But the only other options I know I could have lived with. You can't outrun yourself. "He could have let Dash stay and fly through your magic even faster, or held off all the reckless explosions until your spell was done. Poor Rainbow almost tore herself apart over all this," Applejack growled, tone of voice rising. Sweetie Belle swallowed nervously and backed away from the two mares, bumping into the edge of my mattress. "It doesn't work like that. Twice the mass, twice as slow to move. Would you prefer they both almost died? He did that for her," Twilight explained, blush now gone and looking irritated instead. Sweetie Belle climbed onto the mattress over me and hid on my other side. Rainbow must have taken this really badly. I wish I could apologize to her right now. Applejack stomped a hoof down. "He didn't have to blow up so soon. It wouldn't have been an issue if he just delayed him a minute or so," she argued, gesturing angrily in my direction. I swallowed weakly. She was right, of course. It all boiled down to me being too weak. Weren't you like dying? After I'd gotten hit by that blast in the back, my body just kind of gave out. I should have been stronger. You were dying. Rainbow could have stayed to the last moment, and nobody's feelings would have gotten hurt. "You were dying! Don't worry about their feelings!" The sick feeling came back, and I held in the urge to throw up. "Why were you attacking him? I screwed up in the first place. If it weren't for my scanning spell, they wouldn't have gotten into trouble at all," Twilight growled, not quite as loud as Applejack. No, it wasn't her fault. It wasn't. "Why are you protecting him so hard, Twilight? Can't you just let her go at the one punch and be done?" Applejack redirected. She growled low, and her snarling face burned into my mind. I winced as a low static audio bled through my hearing. "He's a worthless pile of shit, after all. Why protect him in the first place?" Applejack demanded. I reeled in agony as her words tore at my heart. The room started to spin as I fought to close my eyes. Still she continued. He's a runt. He failed the breeding examinations and is barely fit to be a janitor, let alone a... Why do you support him? I choked back the vomit and sobbing, eyes opening to a darkened room full of glowing red eyes. My vision warped and distorted, spinning as if I had a massive fever. Maybe I did. I felt like I was burning up. The eyes stared wickedly at me. Curved mouths twisted in laughter as I tried to spin away from them. They had me completely surrounded, however, and I cried out, trying to get someone, anyone, to come help me. I clutched tightly at the only thing that gave me comfort, a memento. Some called it silly or childish, but it was all I had. Everything was washed away in lavender, and it felt like I stopped breathing, if but for a moment. A lovely smell and soft feeling drifted over me, even as my beloved memento faded from my memories. My mind felt sleepy suddenly, and I gave way to the soft light, as reality bled back into being. What happened? The soft sensation solidified into a warm coat, and a gentle heartbeat pressed tightly into my chest, and a harder push against my forehead. My eyes refocused just in time to see Twilight's open away an inch away. Her horn pressed against my forehead again. She pulled me out of the nightmare? I couldn't keep him down for long with that blasted hoof getting in the way. Could you hurry it up a tad? Applejack asked, sounding a bit irritated. Uh-oh. All of my muscles relaxed instantly as I forced the tension away. The magic focus went with it, and I felt the elongated ribbons connected to my left forelegs go limp. The ends drifted away from Applejack's face and hooves as she continued putting her full weight on my waist and back legs. Holding me down, my death grip on Twilight's back also lessened, but I saw her blush slightly as my hooves slid off her back. "Mender, are you here now?" Twilight asked gently, smiling. I swallowed and nodded quietly, unsure of how to respond, or what even happened. That's Applejack. Thanks, Celestia, for that. Those darn bandages were darn annoying when they kept trying to tangle me up or crawl up my nose. Applejack muttered, shaking her head rapidly and blowing air out her nostrils a couple times. Spike, whom I just noticed, let go of Sweetie Belle, who bounded back up onto the bed again. "Are you all right, Mender?" she asked rapidly, sliding to a stop at my left side. I nodded tiredly as Twilight moved her horn out of the way. Yeah. I just don't know what happened," I muttered. "You started freaking out on squeezing Sweetie Belle like a stuffed animal or something." Applejack informed, causing me to swallow. "I'm okay. They got me free of the bandages. But are you all right?" Sweetie Belle asked, sounding concerned. Twilight frowned, shaking her head as she brushed her horn along my temples instead. Her warm breath drifted down my neck as I tried hard not to blush. "I'm sensing his magic settling down again. It was a panic attack, but your magic activated too, so this could be dangerous if unchecked," she explained. Her tail swished impatiently as her lower half stuck off the side of the bed. "Is that why his eyes glowed?" Spike asked, approaching on the other side of Twilight and sitting down lazily. "I reckon it's good to keep him here with a magic expert, then," Applejack admitted, finally releasing my stiff waist. "You back, then, Mender?" she followed up quietly. Staring at her again, I tried not to shiver while nodding. "She hadn't really said that, Mender. Calm down. She doesn't think you're a useless runt, right?" There was a moment's hesitation. Something silently noticed, or maybe a rogue thought in her mind. I saw her eyes flicker for less than a second, averting her gaze from mine. Then she snapped back them onto me and covered the building frown with a warmer smile. "That's good. I guess you should stay easy for a few more days," she added, nodding solemnly. "Maybe you should leave for the night," Twilight returned instead, glaring at the orange earth mare over her right shoulder. Applejack sighed and nodded more tentatively this time. "I'll get out of your hair. I only seem to be making it worse for now. Come on, sweets. I'll take you back to Rarity, too." She finally relented, motioning to the white filly on my cot. "Aw, do I have to? This is gonna kill me," she whined in protest. Twilight hesitated for a second before sighing. "Look, I'm sorry, AJ. I'm just a little stressed right now is all, she interrupted, apologizing. Applejack stopped at the top of the stairs and looked back in surprise. After a second or two, the soft smile returned, and she shook her head. I understand, sugar. Rainbow's been talking with me almost every day about it, and I'm a tad stressed, too. She started to explain before frowning at me. Jittery, I looked away rapidly, directing attention to Sweetie instead. She was frowning and looking down at the fabric she'd given me earlier. Wait, fabric? I suddenly noticed the tiny saddlebags on her sides. Oh. That was for Rarity, wasn't it? I whispered, getting a closer look at the now bloody piece of fabric. I guess that's what it was. Sweetie Belle looked up at me in surprise, but then smiled. It's okay. It was for a good cause, she assured hesitantly, absently brushing a hoof over the piece. Will Rarity understand that? Spike asked, sitting on my other side now and looking concerned at Sweetie Belle. Twilight migrated over to Applejack, while we whispered, tilting her head. Applejack seemed to draw assurance from her and nodded to herself. That's not entirely true, I suppose. I've been a bit worried myself, too. A pony grows on you after a while, you know? She finally offered up. I grew on her? My heart wanted to believe her, but my mind was ever the skeptic. I pretended not to be listening. Yeah, I know. He's important to me. I just wish I hadn't screwed up so much. It stressed me out. Twilight returned. I frowned. Important? As a pony or a guinea pig? Sweetie distracted my stalker's tendencies by sighing, seemingly paying no attention to the mares. If she gives me time to explain, it might be not as bad. Does blood wash out? She asked innocently. Way too easily, I assured, before I realized I was talking. I had that impression before. I was suddenly distinctly aware of it. Whew! She might not be as mad at me then, Sweetie Belle muttered, looking relieved. My darker thoughts lightened a little, and I smiled at her. She perked and returned my expression a moment later, nodding. I assured her, Don't worry. Rarity will understand. I'll even come by the boutique tomorrow and explain. Her eyes got as wide as saucers, and she grinned, hugging my chest gently. I chuckled and patted her head lightly. Besides, Princess Celestia left it up to you, right? She still has faith in you, Applejack continued, sapping my attention back to their conversation. Twilight sighed and shook her head warily. It's not her I'm worried about. Still, thank you. She returned quietly. I tilted my head, and Applejack smirked suddenly, looking past the lavender friend and right at me. Well, shucks, if that's all you're worried about. He's right here to ask him after all. Hey, Mander, she called out, surprising me. Twilight looked momentarily shocked before glaring at the orange earthmare. Don't you dare, she warned. What were they talking about that was so dire? Do you think Twi here is a horrible pony, deserving some punishment? she asked, totally ignoring the unicorn's sputtering protests. I blushed lightly, more than a little confused. Sure, I was apprehensive about meeting the princess, but I trusted Twilight's judgment most of all. I shook my head as Sweetie let go of me and gave a questioning look back at the mares. Twilight stopped and stared at me in surprise, tilting her head. You weren't angry that I told the princess? That I almost got you killed? She questioned incredulously. I smiled softly and shook my head. I was in good hooves. Rainbow's a goddess of flight. I don't think we were ever really in danger after you cast it. It was a simple mistake made during a stressful moment, I reasoned. Technically, true. I'd gotten most of the damage due to the communication dish skirmish, not on the first approach to the Aegis. A-E-G-I-S. What is that? Must be like the ship or the center or something. Twilight exhaled lightly, while Applejack laughed. Careful you don't let Rainbow hear you say that. She might try to court you next, she warned, wearing a smirk. I chuckled and shook my head. That I didn't have to worry about, at least. I don't think she's interested, I observed, brushing the faux warning off easily. Applejack just snickered and nodded. I didn't think she'd be. Anyways, I should be heading home. I'll see you tomorrow at evenings getting together. Together. At tomorrow evenings get together. It says together. That's really okay. It's confusing. She assured, maintaining the friendly smile through her slow drawl. Twilight nodded and answered for me. Of course. Could you also clear Sweetie Belle with Rarity? It'll save Mender having to tomorrow. Aw, but I wanted him to visit, Sweetie Belle complained, frowning sadly. I chuckled, feeling a little more useless than before. But I suppose it's for the best. More useless? Mender. You've got some traumatic background. Rawr. He can still visit if he wants. Plus you'll see him at the party, right? Twilight reasoned to the little filly, not missing a beat or losing her smile. Spike snickered and nodded as well. I bet you could get Rarity to let you come over early and help her decorate, too. I'll help you with her duties, of course, in your absence, he offered, smirking towards Tweety Belle. Sweetie Belle. I thought, fuck, what's a bad guy in My Little Pony? Whatever. I can't remember any right now. Twilight gave the little purple lizard, He doesn't know he's a dragon? Twilight gave the little purple lizard thing a knowing, skeptical look, but Sweetie beamed. Really? You do that? She asked, sounding absurdly excited. I resisted snorting at his ulterior motives. Of course, no sweat, he assured, grinning now. I noticed his teeth for the first time, and was surprised to note their razor points. Those kinds of teeth weren't meant for a veggie diet. I found myself debating what he actually ate. Somehow I doubt he'd be Twilight's assistant if it were too gruesome, though. Sweetie gave him a gentle hug before squealing. Oh, thank you, Spike! I can't wait to help Pinkie tomorrow. Applejack gave a soft chortle and nodded. We'd best be off then, Squirt. You have a long day tomorrow, and you need to get some rest, I reckon, she pointed out, motioning towards the stairs. Sweetie Belle nodded, hopping off the cot and excitedly bounding down the stairs. So much energy, Twilight muttered, shaking her head. Young'uns. I'll see y'all tomorrow, okay? Applejack affirmed, as she headed back toward the stairs. Twilight giggled and nodded, following after her. Yeah, I'll see you two out, she offered, before disappearing from sight. I watched her tail disappear down the stairs before softly exhaling. That had gone better than anticipated, minus the whole panic attack and lose control of my magic bit. Still, if it was going to be a problem, here was admittedly the best place I could be. My attention was drawn to the shivering Spike a moment later, however, who was still sitting next to me. There was a momentary lapse of concern before I noticed his almost predatory grin. Excited jitters. Score! He finally shouted out, quiet enough not to carry down the stairs. I couldn't help but laugh at his exuberance. He smirked at me, and raised a claw expectantly. Figures. Some things were universal, I guess. Rolling my eyes, I gave in and bumped a forehoof into his clawed hand, earning a widening of his grin. I sat back and watched his tiny celebratory dance while waiting for Twilight to come back. Author's note. Doom Pie's audiobook chapter. To be announced. That's it. 'Cause I was on vacation and I couldn't do it, but now I did it. Hoped you... I changed around my Twilight, Sweetie Belle, and Pinkie voice. Comment on that, I guess? Tell me how you think I did. I'm looking very seriously into getting an editor now. What it would be is, editing out, like, my mess-ups, and, like, it'd be like, I think it's a different character, or I read it wrong, and then I just reread it, but also sometimes I pronounce it in a way that's weird, or, you don't understand what I said. Like, I'll listen to it, and I'm like, I would not know what I said if I didn't, like, read it myself. And editing those out, and then saying, oh, you have to re-record these parts. And Yeah, that's what an editor would do. It would take time and possibly be grueling, but you'd get to listen to all my stories quicker. So if you like my stories and you have a good amount of time, not necessarily like all the time in the worlds, but just a good amount of time, and you'd be interested, that'd be awesome. Send me a message on YouTube or on Skype. I know several people have like mentioned to me, like, and said, "Hey, I'll be interested in talking to you about that." But it's hard for me to remember who. I only remember one person who actually mentioned it. There could be some YouTube comments or something. What would work best is sending me a message on YouTube, and not just, "I'm interested in being an editor." I don't know. Like, if you say something more, that'll just make me more likely to respond, because I'll see you put effort into it. It's not like I only respond to things that have effort, but just psychologically, I'm like, okay, I'll respond to this because it's long, and responding to long things is fun. As opposed to just, "Hey, I'm interested in being an editor." It's like, okay, that doesn't tell me anything. That was my editor rant. I think I got a good amount of information in there. I went on vacation with my grandma to the Monterey Bay Aquarium. It was good. It was okay. Yeah, it was just okay. Well, no, it was good. I don't know. Shut up. But anyways, I'm back, and I saw Rise of the Guardians, and that was a good movie, and I thought it had similarities to My Little Pony. But I noticed every single movie I have seen in the theater since I became a brony, I have compared to My Little Pony and found similarities. Except for Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, I think. But a lot of them have similar friendship messages. I thought the different characters I could idolize as different ponies. Like, well, Rainbow Dash. The rabbit, the Easter Bunny was Applejack, and Jack Frost was Rainbow Dash. How long have I been going on here on this little rant? 4 minutes. I think that's enough. Goodbye, every pony. See ya tomorrow-esque.